The mine in Hallstatt is a very particular place, I would say. It was used for mining salt. And if you go into the mine, you have this feeling that it's a very tough working place for sure. So it's very hard to imagine that there lived a whole community there. But the need to get this salt out was so high that they not only mined there for some years, but they mined there for centuries, for millennia actually.
Hallstatt is the oldest salt mine in the world. The earliest mining activities could be detected in the Neolithic. So 7,000 years ago, humans began mining rock salt here. They're still doing it today. On the floor of these prehistoric chambers, we find all the items the miners left behind 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And because of the salty environment, everything is perfectly preserved. So we find their torches of light, we find their tools that were broken and they threw away, we find parts of their clothing, we find like textiles perfectly preserved in their colors, for instance. And we also find big wooden constructions like platforms or the oldest staircase of Europe we found inside a Bronze Age mining chamber.
We know quite a bit about the Iron Age miners, how they lived and about their social structure, thanks to the cemetery of the miners outside of the mine, but also from finds inside the mine. So we have here a community of men, women and children who are all working in the mine. We know that we're looking at a very, very wealthy community, so they had the best and beautiful things from all over known Europe at that point in time. But we also know that they had substantial health problems, they have high parasite infestations, which did cause them specific symptoms, so stomach ache and other problems with the gut. We know that they worked physically very hard from the bones, and now the feces are going to tell us much more about the health, again, parasite infestation, but also the microbiome.
The Mining Dining project, which we have together with a project partner in Austria, is targeting the diet actually of the miners which lived 2,000 years ago in this site. And we have in this project now the goal to analyze what these miners ate and how their health was also. So by analyzing the gut content, the intestine, the feces material of these miners. The unique thing in Mining Dining project is that we have access to fresh material. This means we can go inside the mine and we can directly take the samples there. So they are still inside a salt block, so they are not yet treated and not yet washed or sieved. And we can take the samples fresh like they are, put them into tubes and transport them immediately to the laboratories. There are now laboratories in Vienna which look under the microscope also what they see on a macroscopic level. And we here in Bolzano, we have the samples for the DNA extraction. So what we do in the lab is that we extract DNA from a small part. We then convert this into so-called DNA libraries, which are then sequenced as much as possible, as deep as possible, we call this. And the main work is then in front of the computer. So we sit in front of the computer and we divide this DNA into the part which is the microbiome, the part which is the plant DNA, the part which is the DNA from the animals, for example, which we eat. And we have in addition the part of the person also. There's human DNA which can tell us also more about this human individual. And this information content can tell us, first of all, the sex of this individual which deposited this feces, which is very important to understand whether women also worked in the mine. Then we can also reconstruct the diet, the plant and the animal diet. And we can reconstruct the commensals, so the gut microbiome, which is a very important measure how the health of these people was at that time.
And the preliminary studies already showed us that they're eating quite complex food. So we have evidence for beer consumption, which is a very, very complex food. It takes much knowledge, and also it signifies that people are looking for a certain experience in their food. And even more so if we look at the evidence for blue cheese. This is something really special. It's again a very complex food that needs to be produced, and it has a very specific taste.
So the gut microbiome nowadays is a very often referred term. It's important to understand that it's a very important part of our body. It's nowadays even considered as our own organ actually, because it is the barrier between our diet, between what we eat and what we get finally. So it's inside our gut, they process food, and these metabolites we then get. So this means it's important to see what kind of composition I have of this gut microbiome, that I also can understand what I get finally. And different microbiomes have different effects also on you. It's a simple example is that some bacteria can process more fibrous plant material, others not. If you lose these fibrous plant bacteria, it means you cannot process all the food you eat, for example. Before we submitted this project already, we submitted a paper on 4 actually feces material from different times, Bronze Age, from the Iron Age, and also from the Baroque time, which is a modern time. And in this analysis we saw already that there was a shift from more complex diet, very unprocessed food, very fibrous, for example, plant material, to more processed food, so in the Baroque times. And still, this was very interesting, even though it was only 1 sample or 4 samples, we saw that all these samples, independently of Bronze Age, Iron Age or Baroque time, had a different gut community than we have nowadays in Europe or in the Western world. This would indicate, if we can confirm this, that only in the last 300 years, only in the Industrial Revolution, changes occurred in our gut microbiome. And this is what we want to analyze also in more detail. For me, Hallstatt is not a salt mine, it's a gold mine actually. So it's really a gold mine because the information content is preserved like from the first day. And this is a very unique place which is not existing throughout the world even. In archaeology, you're often limited. Take the Iceman, we have 1 individual. Here we have the possibility to go broad. We have from 1 time period many samples, and we can use statistics, which is not often in archaeology. So this means we can really tell something from this community. We can really understand better this kind of community. And this is something which is very seldom in archaeology.